Hello YouTube, welcome back to Great Obate, the sassiest series on YouTube, the regalest series on YouTube. Hell, let's go with that one. Every time I try and find a new adjective to put to the series, and I never fail to disappoint. So this is episode 13. Once again, we're reviewing two cars that you guys suggested in the comments in the last videos-ish. Today I'm doing the Skyline R33 and the Lotus Elise, the 190, or I guess the 99 model. Two very fun cars. Let's jump straight into it with the first one, which is the GTR Skyline R33. And it was suggested by this guy right here. Thank you very much for the suggestion. And when I hopped into this car, my first thought was this is going to be one of the most average cars I'm going to test, because I can tell whoever commented this probably did so out of a passion for JDM, you know, for cars, which is very wholesome in my opinion. But in Forza terms, this was never going to be a good car, right? And I mean, yeah, it's not anything crazy, anything special, but it is still pretty cool. So these are the drift runs. I believe this is my personal best here, and I got a 142.9, which is just above the average, like ever so slightly. It is not an amazing car. It's all right. I guess it gets the job done. A lot of understeer. It feels like a boat most of the time, but at least it has like somewhat decent power. So yeah, it's a whatever car. Honestly, it's fine for what it is. Can't really compliment it. Can't really like say that much. Yeah, it's fine, I suppose. Here's where it does pretty good though. So for some reason the GTRs in general have a very good aero coefficient, and so this car, only with like 1200 something horsepower, it does 463 if I remember correctly, or 460. No, it was 461. Yeah, never mind. Which is very fast. It's really good, right? Especially for this amount of power. So yeah, 7.5 out of 10. Unfortunately, the acceleration is just not it. I'm not sure why some of these cars just have very good top speed and terrible acceleration, but this is certainly one of them, unfortunately. Again, thank you, Travis, for testing these for me. I don't know, man. Only mid 13 is kind of disappointing. It's definitely below the average. So yeah, it's only a 4 out of 10. I'm sure a lot of people, especially the casual audience, would have hoped this car does really well around the track, and I am kind of sad to say that it just doesn't. And yeah, I mean, people who, you know, test these cars and play around in online, they know that. And even if they use it in like A class, which I guess it's where this car will probably be best at, maybe even B class, I'm not too sure. I know a lot of popular purist tunes are in A class, and I'm guessing this one's probably no exception. I believe maxed out this is very bottom of S2, so it's not exactly close. But yeah, no, it's not good. It's just about the average. It has a lot of understeer, even though I used, I went for as much oversteer as I could. My wing fell off. Yay. I went for as much as I could have. I didn't do too many laps because I don't feel like I could have pushed this car that much further. Like I said, I stopped doing laps the moment I'm satisfied with a run, and the moment I realized, like, yeah, I could probably get another 0.2, but what's the point? No pun intended. The grade is gonna be the same. So yeah, not exactly a good car. Not very pleasant to drive either. It's got a lot more understeer than I would have hoped for. It feels like a brick most of the time, but I mean, it's just not built for grip, let's be honest, and that's fine. Not every car has to be built for grip, but I do test all of them for that. So yeah, it is about as average as you can get for a car. Let's just put it that way. I don't want to start another counter for how many times I say the word average, so it's I'm gonna try and find a different word. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, mediocre, and the situation really doesn't change much when it comes to dirt. I would say it is ever so slightly better, just because dirt favors power a little bit more, and this car is decently powerful. It's not very, but it is alright in terms of power. In that sense, I guess, yeah, it might be slightly better for dirt. But at the same time, I do feel like I've done a slightly worse lap here than I did for on Chihuahua. So I don't know. I really don't know. This car is a really a toss-up. It's a whatever, you know. But I still had fun testing it. I would say avoid this unless you're really passionate about Skylines in general, JDMs. But yeah, nah, it's average. That's all I can say. I wish I could find better adjectives, but yeah. It scored 27 out of 50 for a 5.4 out of 10. Again, average, or I guess ever so slightly above. I wouldn't really recommend using this. I wouldn't really put it as I was gonna do, like, you know how the series called Great or Bait, right? I was gonna say, yeah, this car is great and this car is bait. I don't do that just because cars in general are pretty complex and they have their uses and shit. And this car is very interesting because it doesn't really fall into either category. It's very mixed. It's very so yeah. But anyway, moving on to the next one, the Lotus Elise 190 or 1999, whatever. Very fun car. I had a lot of fun testing this one. It is sadly held back a lot by the fact that it just doesn't have power. I believe its maximum power is 760, which again, super underpowered. I think it's like the second most underpowered car that I've tested so far, the other one being the 97 Civic, and that one only had like 10 horsepower less, so the difference is very marginal. But it is very solid for drifting. It just so happens that precipice, whatever you call the zone.
Precipice.
It's probably one of the best zones for this car in general because it is somewhat technical. Yeah, I got a fairly decent score even though the power is terrible, and that's simply because the car just weighs nothing, and I absolutely love cars that weigh nothing. Overall it did a pretty good 143.8, I believe, or something like that. So yeah, it's definitely good. It's very snappy. It's just, man, you're not gonna be able to use this on high power on long stretch zones. It's just very technical, but still it deserves its 8 out of 10. I liked it. I definitely did. It was a lot of fun. Unfortunately though, it is kind of slow, and when I say kinda, I mean very slow. let's just put it that way. So obviously it has no weight and no power, but there are cars with just around the same power as this that do get, higher top speeds due to their coefficient, but this car did a 396. Yeah, I can't do much more than that. I'm sorry. It's just slow. And unfortunately, the situation is the same for acceleration. It has a somewhat decent launch because it's very, it's very light. But I mean, after 150, it just plateaus almost. And it's slow. That's all I'm gonna say. It's not quick. And oh yeah, Forza servers, by the way, great. They were great yesterday. Anyway, 3 out of 10. Sorry, just cannot do much better than that. Now, this is where I think a lot of people are gonna assume this car is going to be amazing at, and I wouldn't blame you. The problem is, it's still only 760 horsepower. So, remember that it goes up against cars that have like 1,300 horsepower on average, and I know that might not sound like a whole lot for the grippiest circuit in the game, because at the end of the day you prioritize aerodynamics and shit, but I want to remind you that this car has ridiculously low downforce for some reason. Like, I don't think I've ever tuned it before, and when I checked, like, this is the amount of downforce it has. It's stupid. It's so little, and so even because it has little downforce overall and no power, it actually doesn't score that high at all. And I was quite disappointed about that when I was testing it. I really hoped it would do at least a bit better, like at least a second or two better. But nah, it's not actually that fast, and I'm kind of bummed up about that, if that makes sense. But I did decide to bump the score by like half a point, simply because this car is really good for grip in A class, and I think it deserves it out of all the cars. This is probably the one that deserves like one, not a whole point, but like at least half a point. I know it's not meta anywhere specifically, but it is very good for A class in terms of grip and purist and whatnot. So yeah, I decided to be a little bit more lenient. It would have gotten a 6, but let's just give it a 6.5. Let's just show it some love, you know what I'm saying? And this is obviously gonna be even worse because it has no power and dirt requires some more power. But I will say it feels a lot better on dirt for some reason. Like it's really snappy. It has no acceleration, of course, because I'm gonna have to have a power counter on the screen, I swear. But it has all the grip it needs and some more, which is really cool. But it still only did alright, is all I'm gonna say. It did alright. It's not unusable. I think that's the best way to describe it. Running out of words and expressions and whatnot to describe these cars, because I've done what, almost 30 now. But it's not amazing, sadly. I do love it, don't get me wrong. It is one of my favorite cars in the game. I would put it in my top 10, but maxed out, it just doesn't really cut it. But I did manage to beat this ghost somehow and pull a sub 103, so yeah, that's as much as it gets. And if we tally up the scores now, the Elise is actually below the R33 on this, even though I do think it is a better car in terms of its niches. It's scored less, and again, that's because it has no power. I'm telling you, power in this game matters so much. 4 out of the 5 things that I test these cars for, they require a lot of power, and sadly this car has almost none of it. But yeah, regardless, that was very fun. Thank you for the suggestions. Don't forget to leave whatever other suggestions you have in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one, I think. Oh yeah.